This part of the James River is a tremendous convergence area for eagles all up and down the Atlantic coast. We have birds that fly here in the summer from Florida and South Carolina. We estimate now that there may be 2,000 birds that are flying up from the southeast of the bay in midsummer. Many of them congregate in this part of the Chesapeake Bay. And then in the wintertime, we have birds that come down from the maritime provinces of Canada and New England and come down to the bay as things freeze up there. And so all these populations seem to converge on the bay, and this particular place here on the bay, the upper James River, seems to be sort of a jewel amongst all these places in the bay. We've counted as many as 450 birds out here on the shoreline in a single day. So it's just a great place to be able to release these birds back among the eagles that are here. And I'm sure Lucia knows that, probably sees them out here, you know, on the lawn every day.
Unfortunately, the tree I had out there was a dead sycamore tree, and I would go out every morning and say, "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Eagle." There were always, two adults sitting there, and as many as 4 sat in there. But unfortunately, it's about killed the tree, and we have to take it down. The old bigger branches fell down. There's a stump, and we have only seen once an eagle landing there. They don't like it that low. We need to find something else.
There's a few here.
So this bird has contributed to something, you know, some of the things that we know about eagles in the Chesapeake Bay. And it's great to see this bird, you know, recovered and ready to go back out into the wild. So
good. Thanks, Bryan. Any questions for Bryan? One of the things that he just touched on is the sophistication of our studies and understanding of these birds. Some of the other studies going on there at William and Mary include looking at mercury levels in all types of wildlife and living systems along some of our rivers, particularly up our way. The South River that runs through Waynesboro, Virginia, which is a tributary of the South Fork of the Shenandoah River, which eventually becomes the Shenandoah and then on into the Potomac. That river was contaminated with mercury back in the 40s and 50s, and that mercury is still there, and it still infests and contaminates and infects the food chain. And we had one bald eagle, in fact, that came from a nest probably about 30 miles from the Wildlife Center on the South River, or South Fork of the Shenandoah River, and when they tested a feather from that bird, they found mercury levels that were just plain off the charts. And that told us, since that bird had not yet left the nest, had only been fed food from that particular locality, that the entire system still had problems. Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you. What's the story on this bird? How did it end up with us?
Sure. This bird came back, I guess, into the Wildlife Center back in June of this year, and it's an adult bird, and it was found down on the ground at a landfill site in King and Queens County. And this bird actually couldn't get off the ground. The rescuers were able to go and capture it, and we actually have the transporter here today that brought the bird up to us. And we essentially did a normal physical exam on the bird, as we would with every other patient that comes through the Wildlife Center. And part of that examination, because the bird was fairly stable, was to include x-rays in the examination. And when we did that, we found out that the left wing on the ulna bone, which is sort of out in this part of the wing, it was fractured in 2 places. And the wing itself had been, the bird had been down on the ground for a while. It was missing a lot of body condition. Some of the muscles over its keel on the front part of the bird were rather diminished. And we sort of estimated that the break occurred somewhere between 7 and 10 days before we actually got our hands on it. And the bird was still feisty, and it actually had done a fairly decent job of trying to callus over that fracture, so it was trying to heal itself. However, it was going to take another couple of weeks to do that, and during that time, eagles will often, they get hungry, and so eagles being, scavenging being one of their main forays in going and getting food, it was hanging around this landfill site and picking off whatever it could. So when the bird actually came into us, we found the broken wing, and because it was healing itself so well, we actually didn't even have to go to surgery with this bird. All we needed to do was provide supportive care and make sure that that wing was being stretched in a manner that provided, that stretched the tendons and stretched all the muscles, so that we basically provided physical therapy for this bird. So once that was done, we transferred the bird to one of our larger flight pens and let it exercise and provide physical therapy all on its own. And up until this morning, the bird has been up in one of our larger eagle flight runs, just flying back and forth. And I have to say, I was telling Ed earlier today, our flight runs are approximately 16 feet wide. And in the past, I have seen some larger birds go flying down in these flight runs and circle around and come back the other direction without touching a perch or without touching a wall, but they've always been turkey vultures. They can do that very easily. I've never seen a bald eagle do that until this bird. This bird can actually, it's very agile. It can bank in the cage and then fly back the other direction. So I don't want to ramp it up too much, but I'm anticipating a good release on this one.
Don't jinx this, Dave.
That's the story on this bird.
Dave has been here to Westover, and his first question was, so are you going to release it over the water? Like, not in this lifetime. So we're still talking about a release. I'm sure Brian's heard the story where the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service released a bald eagle with then President Clinton near the Patuxent Wildlife study area, research area, and the bird flew over the trees and everybody applauded. 2 ospreys hit the bird and it went down in the Patuxent River, and they had to find the Secret Service guys who were out there with a boat, fortunately, so they had to come get a biologist, go out there, pull this bird out of the water, and fortunately the television cameras didn't see it, but it didn't stay a secret very long. And one of our colleagues, Craig Copey, who works for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, is still living that down. And he probably never will. But in any case, before we actually bring this bird out, I'll tell you a little bit about the context within which we do our work as well. That group over there taking pictures a minute ago, the NESTI group, is really part of our extended family now, the Norfolk Eagle Support Team International, that was organized as an interest group and a support group for the little eagle tick that came to us last year from the Norfolk Botanical Gardens that had the viral lesion. It's like almost a tumor-like structure on its beak. Unfortunately, it caused the beak to go crooked, and so the bird cannot be released. But we have decided now that it will remain as an education bird at the Wildlife Center, at least for now, while we complete planning and kind of look at our options. But a lot of the work that's going on there, not only with that bird, but all of our work at the Wildlife Center is supported by individuals. It's not really intended to be an overt commercial, but many of you are supporters, and some of you are very special supporters and very generous supporters, and we appreciate that very much, more than you know. But one of the ways that the NESTI group has been able to generate support, not only for their bird, but for all of our work with eagles, has been the creation of a calendar. Deb's got some over there. And as I told the story last time, they came up with the idea of this calendar and put together some incredible photography about the eagle nest in the Norfolk Botanical Garden. And they said, well, we're going to sell these calendars, and my first thought is, who in the world buys a calendar in August? You know, it's just like, what are they thinking? Well, 700 people so far have bought them, and I think what is there is just about all that's left. Almost out, so our first run is 700, that's what's left, so apparently a lot of people buy calendars in August, so what do I know? But if you are interested in one of those, more than half of the cost of the calendar, the part that doesn't cover just the direct printing cost, does come to the Wildlife Center, and you become a donor and supporter of the Wildlife Center, and you get some very cool eagle photography. Many of the photographers are here, and you'll see some familiar faces and some wonderful information about eagles, that particular nest, but eagles in general. So see her afterward. There'll be I've got a couple of other things. Reach in there and grab that frame picture behind the driver's seat. One of the other things is that, I guess it's not tomorrow, but next weekend, we have our annual fundraising dinner in Stanton. We still could get you in if you're interested in coming, but the NESTI group has also provided us with some things for our auction. We have live auction items and silent auction items and that sort of thing. This is the Norfolk Eagle, and a picture that was taken, I guess, on NESTI Day, right? Is that right? So this picture was taken on the 19th of last month when the NESTI group came and had a special event at the Wildlife Center, and you can see, I think, why they're so taken with this little guy. Unfortunately, what the picture is framed to not accentuate is that his beak looks like this. So he'd never make it in the wild, and the veterinary department has to Dremel down or carve down that beak about every 6 to 8 weeks so that he can manage it, pick up his food, and that sort of thing. Okay, thanks Dave, and thanks to the